Hello, and welcome to the SailPoint Identity Security Solutions Show, the one place where you'll get the latest and greatest information about SailPoint's portfolio of products. Joining me today is Dan Martillotti, Senior Director of Product Management here at SailPoint.
James,
Dan,
how's it going?
awesome, buddy. So glad you're here. So glad we're here together.
There you go.
So Dan, we're going to talk about a solution that is near and dear to both of our hearts.
Yep.
As you know, a critical component of any identity security program is connecting and integrating applications and technical resources, just any business resources where access is so critical. However, it seems that the details of a lot of this stuff can be overlooked for a lot of customers. And so today, let's dig into connectivity. Let's talk about how we approach connectivity. Okay? So I think the first thing is, can you just describe what we mean when we say connectivity?
Yeah. So if you think about what we do from an identity governance perspective or an identity security perspective, without connecting to the target applications that need to be governed, right? Being able to collect the information about the accounts, about the entitlements, without being able to go out and make changes natively on those applications, our solution is pretty useless.
Yes.
Right? That means you have to go open help desk tickets. You have to go to an IT specialist to go update a target system and depend that they made the right updates for you to have the right access to that system. So connectivity is the foundation of everything that we do from an identity perspective. Being able to connect to those target applications, being able to automate the processes associated with what we call aggregating the data in, right? And being able to provision accounts back out and make updates on those systems, granting the right access that people need and being able to adjust that access over time.
Yeah. And I think you kind of lean into a little bit of my second question on why we put a high level of interest and focus on connectivity is because it is that foundation.
That's right. It is that foundation, and we have to be able to understand what are the most business critical applications that customers are trying to govern, right? So we build out of the box connectors for that level of application, right? Trying to provide as detailed of a depth solution for being able to govern the accounts, being able to govern the entitlements that are associated with those applications, coupled with the ability for us to let customers have flexibility to connect to different applications, things that they've built themselves or applications that they're using that aren't necessarily as mission critical as the ones that we provide out of the box connectors for.
Awesome. So with that, as customers build and start really bringing in that, ingesting that data using connectors, whether we build them or we provide them the tools to build their connectors. What are some common mistakes that you see talking to customers in that journey?
Yeah. So I think the biggest mistakes that customers make when they're trying to onboard applications is that they will treat every application as a bespoke process. They'll go talk to the application owner or the business owner and say, what do you want to have happen when somebody joins the organization? What do you want to have happen when someone moves within the organization? Do you want to revoke that access? Do you want to reassign that access? Do you want to give them access for a period of time? Right. And what happens when someone leaves? Do you automatically delete? And so they go in and they ask those questions in a very open-ended way. And that means now somebody in the business has to think about what is the way that we should be doing this. Right. Having a more directed approach on that thing would be a more beneficial mechanism for getting applications onboarded in a more standardized approach and in a more timely approach.
So, and I'm going to throw you a little curveball here with that because I like to dig in a little bit more. So what would that mean? Like, say, if I go to an application owner and say, hey, how would you like it? I mean, what I think of is just like the scale, the number of permutations that you can have out of it.
Exactly. So if you go in and you take the approach of our standard process for onboarding and offboarding somebody associated with an application is this, and then asking the question, does that meet your needs? Right? Yes. And more often than not, the application is going to say, yeah, that makes sense if it's a good process. And it will be repeatable across applications within the business. And so you've guided them down the path of giving them the direction that we're going to go versus asking them to provide you with that input.
Awesome. That's very powerful. So with that, we've kind of leaned into the next question about best practices to ensure success. So I think that's one. What other best practices would you
The other best practice is to ruthlessly prioritize, right? trying to go in and onboard every application in your environment at one time is just challenging, right? So make sure that you've got buy-in from the business. They understand the value that you're bringing when you're onboarding an application. What is the goodness that comes from the identity security program, helping them better govern access to their applications, but being smart about how you prioritize those, right? Focus on the things that are going to have the biggest impact to your business. And then expand slowly over time.
Okay. So the last question, and this is always a fun one, is what's something upcoming about connectivity that gets you super excited?
Yeah. So a couple of things that we're doing on the connectivity team that I think are really cool. The first, and we'll talk more about this, later in the year, is how are we going to automate the process of onboarding an application. We talked earlier about the importance of speaking with the business about the processes that they want to follow, but there's the mechanics of onboarding a connector, defining the data schema mappings, talking about the provisioning policies that you want to have in place, all the different aspects associated with that. And there are things that we can do to automate a lot of that process, to provide our program administrators with guidance on how to connect those applications, giving them the flexibility to make adjustments where they see fit. So we'll talk more about that coming, later in the first half of the year, going into Navigate as well. The other thing that we're doing is we're just continuing to expand the breadth of the connectors that we support. We've made a lot of investment in SAP recently, right? SAP is encouraging their customers to move to the cloud. They have a whole new suite of cloud applications. And so as customers are making that transition, we want to make sure that we have the right set of connectors to support them in that journey. So there's a lot of investment just in continuing to grow the breadth of applications that we support.
And I want to throw you one more curve.
Sure.
How many connectors do we support today? Just rough estimate.
300 plus?
300 plus.
Yep.
Out of the box.
Yep.
That's incredible. That's awesome.
Yep.
Well, Dan, thank you so much for joining,
James. Yeah.
I want to thank everybody for tuning in and listening to our conversation. To learn more about SailPoint Identity Security Cloud Portfolio or to listen to more episodes, please join us at sailpoint.com. Thank you.